it's Graham here, and today I want to show you the new Microsoft Teams rooms on Windows 4.11.12 release, and namely the feature called Front Row. So let's have a look at what has been announced in this latest release. So we have Front Row, and it's in preview, so it will change a little bit over time as it gets feedback from the customers. And this is also available now as an admin setting, so we can push it through the XML configuration as well, and I'll show you that in a second. In this release, we also have a Meet Now and Call App update, which we'll touch on, and the ability to switch between cameras, which we'll also show you as well. And that can be defaulted through the UI, and we'll set that up as well. And also we have a new Cortana button. I probably should have said that, sorry, too late. There we go, I've just set it off on my laptop. So, Courtney, we have, has a new icon and push to talk, and also released in other languages as well. The other update here is that we have the Azure Active Directory conditional access policy support now. So that enables you to push policies down to these devices that were a bit more tricky previously. We also then have the Azure P1 license that's now included in the Microsoft Teams Room license. So when you log into your portal, you'll be able to see that you now have this license assigned. So you get Skype, Teams, Intune Endpoint Management, Azure P1, and phone, being able to dial out from meetings. So the license has got better, free of charge, basically. So you can see item number one there. These are rolling out through web service updates. Now, to understand how the Teams update works, the Microsoft Product Manager, Sohail, wrote a great guide on that, and we can just jump to here, and I'll put the links in the notes below. But basically demystifying what the Microsoft Teams Rooms process is between the application that comes from the Windows Store and then the web updates, etc. So I'll put that link in below so you can read that at your own leisure. It's a great document there, but it also talks about things coming in the roadmap too. The other link that it gives you is obviously what is in the Teams update process and how the desktop application behaves. And that's where Microsoft want to get to with the Microsoft Teams Room as well. So you get regular updates pushed out to the system from the web service backend. Some of these features are Microsoft Teams only or Teams default with Skype. So for example, item number 2 there is the Meet Now updates, because it's using Teams for that default call experience. And then item number 4 is that remote control pan-tilt zoom support, and this is only available in the desktop application. You can't use it in the Teams web app, you have to use it in the desktop application. And there's also a PowerShell command you have to run to enable this as well. So this would be more likely for a remote consultation maybe. Someone wants to control the camera on the other end. It's not controlling your camera, it's controlling the remote camera. So that's the list of updates. So let's jump to my setup here. So here I have a single display. So I've got my center room console, and I've got a single display. I then also have a dual display setup here too as well. And why is that? That's because Front Row behaves a little bit differently between single and dual. So on a dual screen, we will be able to show up to 9 people on the film strip, and on a single display, we'll be able to show up to 4 people. So just to give you a look and feel of that difference, so you can see what it looks like. But actually, let's take a look at the configuration of this, and back to our page here. There is the ability to configure the system with an XML. So we can go to our manage and settings with an XML file, and we can search for front row. So now this is an option that you can do to force front row. So if you have designed a room for front row, maybe you've got a nice curved table and you want that front row experience, to stop users changing the view. Remember, you've still got gallery, large gallery, together mode, they're still options. Front row is just another layout. So you can force it on, or it's the default as the gallery. So with the XML, you can use this flag here. 0 is that it's on, but it's selectable, and then 1 is obviously to force it. The turn off, you can actually put it on false, so people don't turn it on. So that's an option there that you can do. And anything else of interest here? So the other key thing with MTRoW is the scaling of your screen. So we'll go to known issues, and you'll see an item in here. Split gallery. Where is it? There is one mentioned for MTRoW. Here we go. So this is where it mentions MTRoW is for 4 people on a single display and 9 people on a dual front of room display. The displays obviously need to be set to 1080p and 100% scaling. Now that is key to get everything working and in the right aspect ratio. And again, the font size, again, if that's wrong, then you'll get everything out of sync. So there is a link here, and I'll put that in the description below, on how to do this. So we need to go into the admin side, so log into the admin side and go to our monitor scaling. So let's just do this. Let's go and check my single screen. I know I've changed my dual screen, but let's check the single screen and make sure that is set up. Because this we need to do, otherwise we will get that odd resolution, where you've got the chat now on the side. We'll have loop components at a later date, but we want to ensure that we're able to get that right experience. So I'll just go to more, into my settings, and into Windows settings. So these features should have rolled out to all systems by now. The web service update and also the desktop or the application itself. So that all should be there and ready. So now we're logged in. What we want to do is go to our settings and into display settings. So we can see here what our scaling is set to. So remember, you've got your front of room displays are the ones that you want to make sure that are on 100%. It doesn't matter obviously what the center room console is. That needs to be set for 200, for example, on my side of things. So each manufacturer will have a different resolution probably for that, showing it in the 1280 by 800 resolution for the center room console. We need to make sure the front of room displays are on the 100% 1080p. So also, once you've done that, there is also a PowerShell command to run. So if we jump back to our notes here, you can see, so once you've run the command to make it to 100%, done that change, you then need to execute this from an elevated command prompt. So running the script to apply the correct scaling, and then I would reboot. So looking at my single screen, because that was set to 100%, we don't need to make any changes there. So that was me playing with the center room console, which we didn't need to change. It's just the front of room displays we need to do. So once you've done that, it'd be good to give it a reboot. I'm just going to cheat here and just sign out. So that's the first thing you got to do to set it up. That will be displayed there anyway, regardless of whether you have done the XML configuration. And we sign back in. Now we've got our system back signed in. Let's just jump to the dual display to show you what the settings are that we have now in the platform. So for example, if I head to the option that we have here for more, and then what I can do is jump to the settings. Now the reason I'm looking at this is because we have the new camera options. So now under peripherals, I get a choice of default camera. So like we had with our audio, we can choose I've got 2 cameras here, MTRoW or Meetup. So if I click on preview, I get to see which camera is the preview for the default. So that's the Meetup. And if I change that to the MTRoW and hit preview, you can see that is watching the dog sleep. So that is what you can do for your default. Unfortunately, you can't change the naming of that. That's a request. I think it's on the public feedback forum. What you want as the default camera there. So remember, this is different to the content camera. That option's been there for a long time. To see if you're using that magic whiteboard camera on the Microsoft Teams rooms. So define your camera here. And let's just double check. I don't think there are any new settings in here. So we've got our account in Teams only mode. We have our meeting set up. We've got our interop with guest join access, Zoom and WebEx available. And we've got our dual screen set up in this environment. We also have, and again, one of the things about the camera options, that's not yet available in the Teams Admin Center. You can't push that down as of yet. So that's one thing to note there. You have to do it locally on the console itself. But that probably doesn't matter because you're probably installing the camera, so you'll change the settings as you install that. And I'll just run through a few different options here now. When I click the Meet button, this now takes me into a Meet Now experience, and I'm ready to do a video call. So very much like Meet Now on your desktop client, I'm able to start that call, then start inviting people. So that's that slight change on there. And while we're in here, we'll look at the camera options. There's a little down arrow. I get to see a preview. I can change the camera and go to the Brio, for example, and I just tap away from the screen. So quite easy to change the camera on the fly there. In my layout button, I have now that front row. It's got the preview tag there, as I mentioned, and you can have that set up. Now, just one thing to note, you can swap screens on a dual display. The front row layout takes that away because it needs to be in the correct layout. So the hand raising on the left-hand side, and that's where the loop components will go, I believe. And then on the right-hand side, that's where we'll have chat, which we'll see in a second. So that's one thing to note in the UI change. You won't get the option to swap screens when you go into front row. And that's really it. That's the sort of UI changes. And then if we look at the dial, so we used to have dial pad. Hang on, what's on my t-shirt? Nope, it's not there on this one. We had the ability to have the 10 buttons for a dial pad. Now, if I press call, that now brings me to this window, and now I could type in someone's number. Let's make a number up, and if you've got PSTN calling, obviously then you can hit call, and that would break out. I don't have a calling license. So it depends on what you have, but again, that could be someone to call someone directly on there as well. That's the UI changes. They're the sort of two major updates. And also we have the Courtney icon. So this is set up for push to talk. So if I click that button, join my next meeting.
11 p.m. now?
Yes, please.
Joining your 11 p.m.
So now we're in a call. I have my friends connected next door. So they are in the call already. Now, obviously, we're now using the new dynamic layouts. So we've got full screen of ourselves, full screen of the other people. So now if we start bringing in other guests to the call. So now you can see we've got a few other people in the call now. And this is a normal sort of gallery layout. Now let's bring in the single display as well. So there we have quite a few number of people now. Some things you'll notice is a new feature that's been rolling out, or it has been rolled out, is the fit to frame. So over on the far left-hand side, you'll see it's showing the correct aspect ratio. So that knows it's a Microsoft Teams room device in a call. It's going to do that fit to frame. You can do this on your desktop client as well. You can click the three dots and fit to frame. So these are some of the features that have been updated. Again, web server side. You don't even notice these. It doesn't require an app update. So let's just bring in another contact. So I've got my Facebook portal here as an example. We'll bring that in as well. As you can see, when you build up the device, number of devices in a call. There we go, hiding under my desk there. And the dynamic layout of the dual display is separating them. Let's actually jump to the single display and we can see what that looks like. So we can see again that fit to frame on the meeting room system, and then we're also at the top on the fit to frame as well. Let's see if we can get any more friends in the call too. So I have some virtual participants that can join the call, just to give us a nice layout look and feel. And these are Teams clients, so you can see they go in the normal portrait sort of aspect ratio. I'm not even sure how many we've got in the call. We've got 9 people in the call at present. So these are virtual machines in Azure with some video clips just to simulate having multiple people. I can only get enough devices in the home office, so we've got some virtual machines running in Azure for these demos too. And Steve Goodman did a great demo and blog post on how to set up virtual machines, which I'll put in the link below too. So we've got 9 room layout there on the single display. Let's just jump to the dual display, have a look what that looks like. So again, nice layout across everyone here now in the room. And we added another person. I think I've got one more to add. Yep, one more, here we go. So let's add this last one. And then that is our normal layout. And then we can look at the settings there too and see what we have. There we have 12 people in the call. So we have the layout button, so I can switch to large gallery, for example. So that will then show everyone on one screen laid out. So this is good for the desktop client. And then obviously we see people, icons who are maybe not on video on the other side. So I prefer the normal gallery in dual screen layout. So let's actually look at what that looks like on the single screen. So single screen, so this is what I call the dynamic gallery. We go to large gallery, and that's now switching. There we go. So we see everyone on the screen, and obviously we see the icons too there as well. We also have together mode. So let's just look at that. Together mode on the single display. There we go. Everyone sitting in their seats. And for example, even with the device I have next door with the clever auto framing, they're separated into seats as well, more or less, which is quite cool. And on a dual screen, let's just jump and have a look at that. And let's go to the right device and go to together mode on there. And there we have it. So icons on one screen, and then everyone in the together mode. Now, let's just jump back to our standard mode, gallery, because that's our default. And obviously, one thing we do a lot is share content in meetings. So I'm going to share content. Let's just plug in my laptop. Now we'll see how content is displayed. So I have my iPad connected via HDMI into one of the other systems, and that is now being displayed on the screen here. So dual screen, you'll always see content on one side, but also on the layout switcher, you can see that I've got the option to go back to large gallery, so I can see everyone also while I'm seeing content. So we know there's more than 9 people in the call, so you're able to change that to large gallery if you like. So that's the dual screen. Jump back to single screen, see what it looks like. So we get that dynamic layout down the right hand side, content there on the side. But also I can go to large gallery mode, and we get obviously people up the top corner. So it's probably best that you do leave it in, I think, the gallery mode. It's the simplest there. We also, on a single display, have the ability to have content and people, content only, and people only. So I think this is one of the issues before. A lot of people would just see content straight away. I believe that's changed now, or is changing, that we now see obviously that available to us, that we get the content and we get the people, so we know who's in the call. So that's our default layout in this sort of setup now for single and dual display. As I say, during a call, we can hit the down arrow, select our cameras if we need to. The other thing, so let's just look at the control panel. So if we click on a user, we can choose to pin or spotlight. Now pinning, as it says, pin for me. Spotlight is spotlighting for everyone. So if I spotlight, let's go to myself here. If I spotlight this for everyone, I get prompted, do I want to do this? Now I'm doing this from that center of room touch console. Now I've spotlighted my device for everyone. Let's just drop out the content out of the call, so we see who is spotlighted in the frame. So it's my device next door, that is then spotlighted for everyone. And if I jump to a dual display, you can see we still have people on the left hand screen and then the spotlighted people on the right hand screen. Now if I spotlight another person, so let's go for another person. Now I think we can add up to 5 spotlights, and I think you can put up to 9 people. So we can add more people to spotlight. And what's going to happen again is that automatic fit to frame. So because Deborah here, she's on a Windows device, she's portrait. The room system is in that 16:9 landscape. And if we add, for example, Lee as another spotlight that for everyone, the aspect ratio changes, and a little bit green, processing power on these devices may not be enough, but you get the idea. That will then automatically blend and show those spotlight people on the devices. So, what's next? Front row. Let's have a look and see what we can do with front row. So I'm just going to take off the spotlight of everyone here. Okay, so now we have everyone back to normal in a call, and I believe we're in large gallery mode here. Let's just change that to our normal gallery. So again, wherever you pin or spotlight, they'll appear on one screen, everyone else will appear on the other. So there we have our layout with everyone in the call. Now let's do front row. Let's go to single screen first and see what front row looks like on a single display. As I mentioned, you can force this. You don't have to set any rooms up. You can use your standard screens, projectors. You don't have to put anything fancy in, but there will be some guidance coming from Microsoft on how to create a great experience from this. So let's hit front row on the layout switcher. I press that layout switcher, enable front row, and we'll watch our layout change. So as I say, down on the left hand side, that is reserved for raised hands and I believe loop components. On the right hand side, we have that ability for any chat messaging. So if someone is talking and put the chat in, and let's do that from here. So I'll put a very simple hi in there. That's then popped up. And you can see that message just above me there, that side. So people now get to see messaging on the front of room display. So that's one great feature. The other great feature is if I raise a hand from this room system, for example, and I raise a hand from this one. So now you get to see raised hands on the left hand side here, and I'll also do it from my device here. So very simple, very intuitive. So when you are looking at the screen, you get to see who's raised hand, but you also get that yellow box around it, which is cool as well. So that's a nice feature that we have there. And again, forthcoming feature on here will be also that order of raised hands. So you know who to answer questions first, etc. So that's front row. As we see, we've got 4 people on there on the single display. Now let's spotlight my device in the other room again, just so we can see what that looks like. We'll spotlight for everyone. So again, we've got that large, I call it middle stage, where we've got the meeting title. So then that is reserved for content. So even though we've got everyone spotlighted, we still keep that stage for the content, and then I will appear down the bottom left when that catches up. So again, we move everyone a little bit smaller on the other side as well. So some clever things that the layouts do dynamically. And then if we share content, let's wake up my iPad and bring content into the meeting. Then that will take away where we have the daily stand-up and put our content up there. So nice and simple, nice and clear for everyone. Now I think the recommendation from Microsoft is a 46-inch screen or larger to get the best experience out of this. So that is the single display. with spotlighting and with content shared. So now let's turn off the spotlighting and we'll jump to a dual display and build up the same scenario there as well. So we'll stop spotlighting, we've taken our content off, and we are good to go. So let's jump to our dual display. And here we have what we had before. We've got, obviously, we can still see the raised hands. We see the raised hands on that center of room console next to me here. So again, we see that, and obviously they'll be numbered at a later date as well. Let's put this in front row. So again, we have the raised hands on the left-hand side. We have the messaging chat on the right-hand side. And then we have everyone down the bottom, as we expect in front row, and we've got the resolutions, layouts set up there correctly as well. Now when I share content, so content will come into the left-hand screen. That will be displayed up there. And obviously we still have the right-hand display showing the meeting title. So when I go and spotlight people, there we go. We spotlight people or pin. Remember, I could be in the room myself and I can pin the main speakers. We then see everyone who is spotlighted. So let's spotlight someone else. But you get the idea. Whoever you use and spotlight is then shown up on that side there. And we can go to, obviously, more and more people. That layout will change up there. So that's a nice feature to have, where you're able to spotlight everyone, or see your content, see that raised hands, and as you say, we'll also have the looped components coming up as well, so that will make use of that space. And there was a video interview with Greg Barabet, who helped design this with Microsoft IT. I'll share that video as well in the notes, so you get a view for what's coming up. So remember, this is still preview. There's lots more features to come within the platform. So looking forward to doing that and seeing what else Microsoft can do with front row. And as I say, there will be some guidance on best practices. So if you want a dedicated front row experience, so if you think back to what we had maybe with meeting rooms with telepresence, that were dedicated rooms, which is why we've got the ability to lock that format. So you're able to lock it in. People can't change that layout. So that's good then for a great experience. Every time you walk in that room, you get front row, and it looks great. So I'll just look at the control panel here, where we go to the front row. As you can see, swap screens has been removed. So just bear that in mind. You always have the hand raising on the left, chat on the right. Because again, your cables might be incorrectly set up from HDMI 1 and 2. And obviously scaling, that's a key issue there. Make sure your scaling is set correctly, and then everything looks great on the display. So that is Microsoft Front Row, the latest update 4.11.12. Cameras, multi-camera set up now on there as well. Anything else have I missed from this latest update? Let's just jump back to the release notes and see. So we saw Front Row. We saw how to do the XML configuration. We saw the Meet Now and Call App updates, how to switch between cameras, how to set the default camera, our Courtney push to talk icon update, and also how to use it. And then the other feature that we haven't touched on is that remote PTZ, which we'll probably do in a later session. And conditional access support and Azure P1. We haven't touched on that, but that again is something that some organizations do. If you're domain joining, obviously you'll want to use those features. But again, there's some documentation on the Microsoft Docs site. I'll put a link to there on all those features. So thanks very much for watching. Any questions, let me know, and I'll be happy to answer them. Cheers, bye.